Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you'll consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and professional writing needs. I am delighted and honored to be joined today by Michael Allison. We will be discussing overcoming adversity in life and business. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies, to nonprofits as well as high-net-worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at info@pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Michael, welcome to the show. Thank you for agreeing to do this. And the reason I said that I was honored to have you is that you are a Purple Heart combat veteran. So before I begin, on behalf of myself and all of our viewers, thank you for your service.
Absolutely, Bruce. Thank you so much for having me here, man. It's a pleasure. It goes without saying, serving this country has been a privilege, and just to give back and do it so willingly and effortlessly, I would say, in regards to just raising my hand, is an honor, man.
Well, I thank you. Now take a moment or two and please introduce yourself to our viewers.
Absolutely. I'm Michael Allison. I'm the founder and CEO of the Adversity Academy, where we offer consulting and coaching in regards to mental health and just being resilient with that mindset when it comes to coaching and consulting within your business or for your team. I'm also a speaker and an author for the book Overcoming Adversity. And when I speak, I tell my story in regards to empowering and just leaving an impact to our audiences that they could walk away with some tangible, actionable steps that they could implement into their lives.
Now, I've worked with many, many veterans, and I learned a long time ago not to ask some questions. So I'm not going to ask you any questions about your military service.
Okay.
Suffice it to say, you didn't get your Purple Heart because of a paper cut.
Absolutely not.
And people can read your bio on the YouTube information about the program. What I like about this subject of adversity is I get a lot of older individuals applying for jobs, not getting anything, and everyone's default is that they're not getting the job because of their special minority or whatever status. So an older person doesn't get a job because they're old. You don't get a job because you're Black. I don't get a job because I'm Jewish. The idea that there may be a better candidate doesn't enter our minds. We're obviously the best.
Right.
What I tell older applicants to focus on when they get the invitation, when they get the interview, is that unlike younger, without saying unlike younger, but to focus on adversity, because they've been through adversity, which 20-year-olds have not been through. So adversity is a very important topic for me.
Mm-hmm.
What is adversity?
Adversity is the experience. It's that going through that valley, when you get to the top of the mountaintop, you could speak to it. I think it helps build that character that's within you. So whenever you're faced with anything, you could overcome these things. For example, adversities for me was some childhood trauma that I grew up facing. Adversity for me is being in the Boy Scouts and went through another set of trauma, playing high school football, going through that trauma, serving in the Marine Corps and going to the hospital my first year in, dealing with some of the things that would go through in boot camp, going into service, going to Iraq and facing battle, getting out of the service and learning how to deal with that transition, So when things came at me in life, tough times, hard times, I was mentally tough in regards to attacking some of these things where I knew how to navigate. I always had the title around me saying that I have a can-do attitude. And that's the mindset that I created for myself, knowing that I've been through so many things in my life that I know how to navigate through some of these aspects and know how to get the right people on my team, hire the right people, or partner with these different types of people in regards to overcome those types of adversities.
When you said you were a Marine, I scanned the bio you wrote. You didn't mention that you were a Marine. I think your fellow Marines are going to be angry at you, but that's something you can deal with them directly. How do you overcome it? Well, first off, the title you gave was adversity in life and or in business and life, or life and business. Why would there be a difference in overcoming adversity in life for business, or is it the same process?
I separated them, but they do kind of intertwine. And the reason being is, for me personally, I struggled in my personal life a lot, and I excelled in my professional career and even in business. Slowly, though, it started trickling in and affecting my professional life in business. And what took place was, when I got out of the service, I struggled with employment. And the first job that I got, I was a train master for Norfolk Southern Railroad. And I was a supervisor managing these different employees. I'm managing the train performance, the train connections, dealing with different customers and vendors for 5 straight years. What happened, for 5 years, I avoided anything that came with mental health. And I experienced putting my best friend in a body bag. I experienced getting blown up by a car bomb. And one night I got called for a suicide. And when I got called, I saw a dead person across a train track. I had to see that with my eyes. I had to go through the same smells, same thoughts. And then I had to report on the news what happened, report it to my supervisors what happened. And what I did was I compartmentalized some of my past experiences, never talked about it, never did anything with it, and put it in a box. 2 weeks later, another suicide occurred. So I go home, and now I'm sleeping, and I'm starting to get triggered by the lawnmower, the washing machine, the chairs in the house. And now it's impacting how I perform at work. And my performance at work started decreasing. I eventually had to leave that job. A couple of years later, I started working for the Department of Veterans Affairs, where I was a government contractor and a project manager managing multiple different $1 million software projects inside of the IT space for VA hospitals. I'm working and working, putting in all these hours, staying up late at night. And then I have a family at home that I'm not paying attention to, I'm not focusing on. That led to a custody battle, and that led to my second divorce. So all of these adversities are going to hit you in different places, but I struggled with managing those things and trying to balance in those things. And eventually I had to learn how to do those things. So after that, I worked on myself in regards to understanding what is mental health, PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, those types of things. I had to work on being a better dad and being a better husband. And I went back and remarried my wife after I went back and fixed those things within my life. So that's what I mean when it comes to adversity in your life and in business. I could even go on further. Once I started my own business and started a franchise, that impacted my business, where some of the same things that from my past started creeping up. And once I realized those things started creeping up, I sold the franchise and I started my own business.
My advice to anyone, but especially veterans, is when they have a job injury, the first thing they should do after the normal pleasantries is say, look, I know you can't ask, so I'm going to tell you, I have no health issues. Now they're happy. They got an honest, straightforward person, and there's no health issues. I know you can't ask, so I'm going to tell you, I have a health issue. Since you mentioned it, I'll use it as the example, PTSD. Explain what it is. Explain the reasonable accommodation that you need for dealing with it in the workplace. And now they're happy because you've been honest, straightforward. You knew what they were thinking. You recognized the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and you told them exactly what you need, and it is not something that they cannot reasonably offer. The reason I raise that is because with PTSD and traumatic brain injury, most people think they know what it is, but they don't know what it is. Most people think that they know what going through a divorce is like, but they don't, because there are no two divorces that are identical. So how do you educate an employer, a client, a colleague about your anxiety?
The way of going about that is having, I think, third party or mediator companies, which is where myself and some other teammates I know have, where we're partnering with these companies and we're now educating them about some of these things. The thing for me, when I first started working, I've never worked anywhere after I joined, prior to the Marine Corps. So once I got my first job, it was working on the railroad. And when I got out, the veterans community was not educated in regards to what that transition looks like. So I think that was a missing component in regards to how we communicate, how we do a resume, and how we actually go and sit down for an interview. So being that's one of my first jobs getting out of the military, I did not really know what to say, did not really know what to do. So there was a stigma in regards to mental health. So I kind of did what you just mentioned. Like I put it in the box. So I didn't tell a company that I have mental health issues, I have these types of things that's going on with me, because to be quite honest, I needed a job, I needed an employment, I needed an income. I had a wife, I had a son on the way, all of these other factors that was in the way in regards to trying to get this job. So I didn't worry about those things. I think what is important now is companies need to be much more understanding or responsive in regards to having these types of things in place. So when I was working at Florida Atlantic University, this was something that was disclosed and it was accepted. When I got hired to be the veterans director, I spoke to the person that was hiring me and I said, these are some things that I'm dealing with. But what was great was I had to make a presentation. So when I made a presentation to them, I disclosed that I'm a veteran. I disclosed that I went to combat. I disclosed I'm having these issues. But I also shared some things that can be done. I shared some things that can be placed when it comes to the accommodation and things like that. Not just for me as a person that you're hiring, but you also had veteran students. Through those types of things, they were able to listen to me. So we brought in different programs like service dog programs. We brought in different things where the VA came into the hospitals and was starting to work with the veteran students, those types of things. So it depends on the type of company. The first company that I worked with in 2007 said that they were a military friendly company. So I thought that it may have been a win-win in regards to like that marriage with the company. But some companies are different. You know, some companies worry about the bottom line. Some companies worry about some other things. So for anybody that's going to find a company to work for, you got to make sure that their values and their standards align with you, and it's going to be a right place for you to work at, because you're going to be miserable, you're going to be uncomfortable, and you're going to be looking for the next job opportunity.
I've had veterans who I've told to use humor in interviewing, to put the interviewer at ease, because as I'm sure you're aware, 99% of Americans have never come into personal contact with a veteran.
Mm-hmm. True.
So Let me give you one example. I had a Marine.
Right.
And for 2 hours, I'm interviewing him. And I know he's not lying, but he's keeping something from me. And when I do a resume at the top, I like to have selected accomplishments. And this guy wasn't getting any phone calls, which didn't make any sense. So I said, well, what I like to do for veterans is to put down, if it's true, never lie on a resume or in an interview, highly decorated veteran of the U.S. Army, U.S. Marine Corps, U.S. Navy, U.S. Air Force, Coast Guard, I guess now Space Force, whatever. That's the first bullet point. Then they believe all of the good things they've been told about veterans, so they'll pick up the phone. Well, he wasn't going for it. And I said, what aren't you telling me? And he said, I'm a Silver Star recipient.
Wow.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, is number 3 on the hit parade.
Wow.
So I said, that's going to be the first bullet point. His phone didn't stop ringing. But I asked him, I said, I've got to ask you because I want to know how you're going to answer the question because everybody's going to ask you. What did you do to receive the Silver Star? And he looked at me with a smile on his face and said, Bruce, I'd love to tell you, but if I do, I'll have to kill you. And I said, that's exactly how you answer it. And he, first interview, that's what he said. They hired him. They all laughed. It was okay. They never went there again. On the other hand, I've had veterans who were injured, not like you, who were injured. One guy, and when he would tell the story, it was funny. He was standing behind the recruits who were on the firing range.
Okay.
And his favorite recruit stood up like he was supposed to with his M16, cocked it to make sure there wasn't a shell in the weapon. But he didn't realize he was standing on an unstable stone. And he lost his balance.
Wow.
And he fell backwards. And when he fell backwards, his finger hit the trigger. The bullet was expelled from the weapon, and he shot his sergeant in the knee. It was 1,000,001 shot. The best sharpshooter in the world couldn't have made that shot. Well, the kid is beside himself. The sergeant is in a bit of pain. And when he would tell the story, it was very amusing. But the reasonable accommodation that he needed was to be able to extend his foot 3.5 feet. So basically to sit at a desk the way I am with a wall that's 4 feet away, and there's no problem.
Right.
All right. Another veteran told me that because of serving in Afghanistan, he wasn't used to bright light. It bothered him. Same thing with those who serve on submarines. So he wanted to wear sunglasses in the office. The third veteran told me that he can't sit with his back to the door.
Right.
All 3 of them asked me to call the boss and to tell them what the problem was and what the reasonable accommodation was. And all 3 bosses respond the same way. Bruce, I'm not interested in this nonsense. It's not a problem. It's not a big deal. It's nothing. Make sure they're here at 9 o'clock Monday morning. All right? Now, the reason I tell this story is because a person facing adversity, and we've made this about health, but it's not only about health, it could be anything.
Right.
Doesn't appreciate that what they consider to be a big deal is considered a big deal by someone else. But that other person doesn't want them to think that they are belittling their situation. So even though you don't think it's a big deal, how should the other person respond when they hear about the adversity that somebody is going through in such a way that won't be offensive?
I think the person that's receiving the message should approach it with empathy. I think, not actually going through the circumstance of what that person have been through, but if they could approach the situation with empathy, then I think that will help mitigate any hesitation or resistance from that veteran when that time comes. I think another thing for me is looking at it from the veteran side point of view is when we got out of the service, kind of like what the first gentleman you said about the Silver Star, we have a bit of humility that's tied to us, and we don't try to put that out there. We don't try to cause problems, or we try not to cause any trouble, and those types of things hurt us. And it kind of goes with the saying of closed mouth don't get fed, and that's what a lot of us veterans run into in regards to kind of bragging about ourselves, and that's what a part of a job interview is. So I think for us as veterans, when we go to meet an employer or a hiring committee, those sorts of things, it is important for us to share our story, share our message, and let that other person on the other side embrace that story through empathy, through understanding, through getting to know someone on a human level, and not so much so where everything is so technical and everything is so by the book, that sort of thing. Those create a better atmosphere for the veteran when they're coming in. So if a veteran walks in and he's on edge, and you know that, or if you know that you're coming to interview a veteran and you're going to set the atmosphere where they're on edge, then that creates a very awkward interview for a veteran.
I interviewed a veteran who was, I don't remember. I knew he did 3 tours of duty. I remember 2, Afghanistan, 1 Iraq, or vice versa, not important. And he is sitting through the entire interview at attention. That's the only way I can describe it. He's not moving. I said, in an interview, you've got to be animated. I mean, not ridiculous, but you got to be animated. Hand gestures. Why are you seated so stiff? It's like you're at attention. And he looks at me and says, Bruce, this really scares me. And I said, 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan, 1 tour of duty in Iraq, and you're afraid of me? And that sort of broke the tension. But everything you were saying is correct. However, I also have to think about our viewers. So we went kind of, sort of, maybe kind of off topic. Want to get back to adversity in business and life. Now, when you have adversity and you have family members, and obviously this is not always the case, they love you, they care about you, they respect you, and it should be easier, not always easier, to talk to them. At work, you're dealing with people you don't really know.
Right.
So let's focus on the work. How do you bring together people of diverse backgrounds, most of whom don't know one end of a grenade from another, and get them to buy into the idea that your experience as a veteran, the negative experience which caused adversity and which enabled you to which you had to overcome, is relevant for whatever silly problem they're going through by comparison to what you went through?
I think the beauty in that question, Bruce, is when employers have an open floor where veterans can communicate and there's no biases. And what I saw happen for me, I give an example, was I was the director at FAU, and within the university, we used to meet every single Monday, and all of the different departments was there. And what was interesting, as we would go around, I saw that they would lean towards me in regards to a lot of the things when it comes to the veteran students, and for them to accept me speaking on behalf of the veterans from a veteran's point of view was the beauty within that. And what I found, for me sharing that type of experience, the registrar's office would come and talk to me and say, hey, we have these veterans coming to us. How would you like for us to talk to you, approach them? And what I found was there was much more reception in regards to how to handle a veteran, how to speak to a veteran, how to talk to a veteran within the classroom. And from there, man, it started spreading. And to have a voice of a person that's already there, that's a veteran, to now start teaching the teachers, now start teaching some of your people that's within a higher level of the different departments to understand what it is from a different veteran's point of view was the key for me. So if someone is within the workspace now and they're creating a high tension where veterans aren't able to share their voice, I would recommend to you to start either look for an opportunity to hire a veteran or have a veteran sit within that room and give that veteran a voice. And that's what happened for me. I was able to get a voice and be able to sit inside of that room and then able to share my opinion and then talk to them around some of the things like, hey, these are some things that veterans may be dealing with within a classroom. These are some things that may be dealing with when it comes to like your marketing. These are some things, this is how you need to speak to a veteran. This is what you need to talk to a veteran around. Because I'll give another example. So we had quite a few veterans that served in combat. And some of the teachers would say that we have veterans are jumping in the classroom, or they're startled, or they have anniversary dates, those types of things. And some of those things, they were being triggered. And they was wondering, why is this student like this? Or why is this student not coming to class? And I had to go and educate them because the veteran was not communicating those things. But when you went back and checked, oh, this veteran served in combat on April 11th, and this was getting around his anniversary date. This is why he's acting this way in class, possibly. He may need to meet with a counselor. He may need to talk to somebody. He may just need to have a day off or something like that so he doesn't come into class on edge. This veteran here is going through some issues because he has some PTSD issue, and it may not be his anniversary date, but he had a friend that committed suicide on this day. And these are things that they're not thinking about within the workplace or within the school facilities and things like that. But having someone like me that had that experience, I could start speaking for them and start telling these types of stories, made them have a different perspective and start cognitively thinking about some of these things that they may wake up and not even think about or even given a thought.
Michael, I have one final question. First, I want to thank you profusely for having come on. I'm going to share your contact information, and I'll put us back on. There we are. Final question. Is there anything that I did not ask you which you wish I had asked you? And if I had asked you, what would you have said?
Great. I get to answer my question and speak about a question. No doubt, man. Thank you for having me on the show, man. I truly appreciate the opportunity. I think my story is the one of overcoming adversity and several ups and downs when I got out. And once I got to the lowest point in my life where I thought of committing suicide, I evaluated my life. And the question that I asked myself was, how did I get here? And then at this point in my life, I have this amount of life expectancy that most people live by, if you want to just go by those terms and things. And asking my question, what is the purpose? Have I challenged myself? Did I set out to accomplish all of my hopes and dreams and goals and those types of things? And if I did not do it, what am I going to do about it today in regards to getting to those things? And it was three things: decisions, direction, and destination. And I started making sure all three of those things align. And from there, setting my goals, setting my dreams, setting a bar for myself was the next level of things that I wanted to do. So for your listeners, I would just challenge them to think about what are the decisions that you're making, what's the direction your life is going in, and what's the destination of where your life is getting to, where you want your life to be at.
Michael, I thank you again. I thank you for your service. You have provided, well, this has just been a unique opportunity, and I don't have the proper words. So it's just simply thank you.
Thank you, Bruce, for having me.
I'm Bruce Hurwitz. Thank you for watching. And as always, please stay focused on success.